Hello everybody, how are you doing? It is great to be with y'all today. I hope everyone had a phenomenal Thanksgiving. As most of you noticed, we didn't make a video the last 2 weeks. We were just busy with school finals and celebrating Thanksgiving with family. I hope everyone got to be with their family during this week. And we are here with episode 5. And we're going to get a little controversial here today. And we're going to be talking about why liberals and Democrats in general are not melting down over Donald Trump's reelection victory. And if you are familiar with the 2016 comp videos talking about, hey, liberal meltdown or liberal tears, millions of views on these videos, and to some degree they were funny and they had some validity to them. CNN, MSNBC being shocked at the Trump upset victory over Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. But in 2024, as much as conservatives and Republicans wanted these videos to take off again, it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. After the election on November 4th, 2024, it was clear that Donald J. Trump would be reelected as the 47th President of the United States. And his firing from the White House and that had occurred in 2020 would not be permanent, and he would be a two-term president after all. And strangely enough, the liberal left did not get overly fired up about this. You just don't see it. I mean, I follow tons of liberal media, and there wasn't this shock, nor was there this outcry. People are willing to accept Donald Trump's victory. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here today. As all things, just a little disclaimer, all opinions here expressed are my own and are not representative of any sort of employment or academic institution that I've been part of. And also, by the way, for the last video, again, we had 270 views. Awesome. Thank you for all the support. There were some comments on there, nothing of note that has to be addressed from last video. Just some great recommendations. Thank you all. Please keep the comments coming. There are 5 chapters of what I want to talk today. And you'll notice, first off, this is the first video. I am not utilizing any sort of Excel, PowerPoint, websites, third party. This is just a video, just a little bit of a lecture discussion. And the first thing I want to talk about is, I have 4 chapters devoted to answering this question, and the final is more of like a what is next. So we're gonna get right into it. The first is why isn't this meltdown happening? And one of the things I want to bring up, in my opinion, is called depolarization. And I read this awesome article, and it was talking about, and it came out about 1 week before the 2024 election. And it was something that I had thought about but did not dare say, and that was, it looked like American politics was thawing. The temperature was lowering. And I think what you're seeing possibly is the policies of both parties moving towards the center. In an era of post-Roe v. Wade, the Republican Party has realized that their pro-life positions were not politically popular, and they have moved, therefore, to the center in order to remain politically viable in state-level elections. And also on things like LGBT issues, the Democratic Party is starting to move to the center on those type of things as well. And on various policies, you know, Trump instituted a host of tariffs on China during his term, and Joe Biden kept them in place. There's just various things for policy. We're almost like living in a policy reset, in which both parties are coming back to the center, shaking hands on policy, and the difference between the two parties on policy is not overly different. Now, keep in mind, temperament, language, rhetoric, those type of things are still, and sentiments, value systems are still very different between Democrats and conservatives. And it always will be. There's always going to be a divide between with both parties. Otherwise, they would just merge into one big political party. It would be factions, right? But the policy is not as different. And one of the things I think I note of this is that both parties are soul searching, because the Republicans realize post 2020, in 2028, they're going to have to set a new frame, new set of values, new set of policy, if you will. What does a post-Trump world look like? And the reason why is their policy, like Trump copycat candidates, have always failed in the election. I consistently use Carrie Lake in Arizona. She's been defeated for senator and governor, both in bad years for Republicans and good years for Republicans, and she's almost exactly like Donald Trump. Donald Trump outperformed most of Republicans that ran for Congress. Once he's gone, that kind of legacy that he has, Republicans are going to have some sort of policy discussion, some sort of soul searching. But for the time being, the real ball is in the court of Democrats. Republicans have won their first time winning the popular vote since 2004, their second time ever since 1992. They're enjoying a victory. They have a 3-seat majority in the United States Senate in an era of congressional polarization, that legislative deadlock where you can't really expect Congress to pass huge things, huge broad stroke legislating reform outside of maybe the one-offs infrastructure that Joe Biden was able to pass through his presidency. But the truth of the matter is Republicans have won a trifecta of power, and they're going to enjoy their victory, and that soul searching is going to take place probably in 2 years, more so 3. Democrats right now are the ones who are soul searching, and because neither party is both parties are this soul searching moment, and policy is coming together again and moving towards the center. You're seeing a thawing, and there was a number given out there that there was they track on the mean of how close Americans think they are to the next civil war. 1 being it's never going to happen, and 100, of course, being that they expect it to kick off tomorrow. And that number has had a 15-point shift, thawing shift. Now, granted, this is the first election since 2012 that was clear, and you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. And what I mean by this clearness is that in 2020, Republican that peaked. It's when Americans thought they were going to go to civil war. Republicans were buying into misinformation that was coming from the then defeated Trump campaign that the election was stolen, despite no evidence from any sort of politicized or non-politicized experts on the field. And of course, Democrats were afraid that Republicans were going to subvert the election results, as some of them were actively trying to do. 2016 had allegations of Russian interference, which frustrated a lot of Democrats. And this will be a good point for the second point too. We'll come back to this, but 2016 was an election in which there was a lot of allegations of Russian interference into the election, whether or not Trump was intentionally taking advantage of that, or was in cahoots with the Russians, or if the Russians were just the expert consensus is that the Russians have acted alone in this effort to subvert the election in favor of Donald Trump, but Donald Trump was not aware nor actively participated in that. And also the James Comey released 1 week before the election about Hillary Clinton's email servers, which seems like chicken scratch today in terms of the scandals that we've had in the last 8 years with the Trump campaign and Trump movement. But so circling to that point, the universal shift that we are seeing, this is something interesting, which is in 2016, Donald Trump secured 46% of the vote and still won the presidency via the Electoral College. 46%, folks, is a failure of the system. Whether you support the Electoral College or not, to acquire only 46% of all votes casted and still win 4 years as the presidency is a huge strain on democracy, no matter how you want to cook it up. But in 2020, there was a shift that was kind of diminished. Joe Biden won that election decisively. It was the largest victory over an incumbent president since 1932. And many people bought it. He won traditionally Republican states like Georgia or John McCain's home state. Enough Mavericks pulled through to send Joe Biden to the White House. He had 51% of the vote, 4 points over Donald Trump. But because Donald Trump falsely claimed that there was election fraud, it never afforded an opportunity to gracefully transition out of the White House. It kind of diminished that. But now, Donald Trump has secured a little bit less than 50%. We'll round up. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I know liberals are really in the one small P thing that they get to hold on to is the fact that Donald Trump never secured a majority, only ever had a plurality of votes. But let's assume that let's give him the extra 0.1 points to say that he won half the country's votes. And everybody has moved to the right. Almost very few demographics moved to the left at all. So this decisive victory, the word decisive has dual meanings that I want to talk about. Decisive can mean a strong electoral referendum. In 2020, there was a strong decisive victory for Democrats because they took a trifecta of government. They were upsetting Republicans in traditionally conservative states. But it wasn't huge. 2008 is the literal definition of decisive, where you crush your political opponents across all levels of election office. It's a huge referendum. People, and basically it means that the people are demanding and will receive massive change in the next 2 years because of how strongly and unified the vote was. So decisiveness can mean various things. Decisiveness in context of the 2024 election was a man who had went from 46% of the vote to 47, 48% of the vote to now 50% of the vote. So he had finally put together a movement that consisted of half of Americans, had buy-in from at least half of Americans. Now, granted, Donald Trump ran a much more efficient campaign. It was not nearly as sloppy as 2020 was. 2016 is not a benchmark of any campaign manager. Really, that was they lucked into the White House. 2020 was a disastrously ran campaign, and Donald Trump learned from those mistakes. Don't sit here, and I hate when liberals come with an arrogance to this, where they try to act like this was something that Donald Trump is this buffoon. I'm sure from many reports Trump has various unique personality traits, mostly lining with arrogance and strength are his two big features. But he's not an idiot. He learned from 2020. And as much as he claims fraud, he knows he lost the election. He knows he lost the election. And he made the necessary reforms in his campaign in order to be efficient and pull off the greatest political comeback in ever before seen. This was a guy who was getting impeached, voted by members of the Senate. 7 members of his own party voted for his impeachment 4 years ago, and he managed to win re-election. What a hell of a comeback. And he recognized that. So that universal shift, it was a unified front. It wasn't like, hey, he won so much of the white male vote. He dominated in that and lucked into the presidency. So now you have 54% of the country that didn't vote. This is 2016 numbers. 54% of the country that didn't want to go this way, but are now being dragged in this direction because he won certain demographics overly. You didn't have that, okay? Most people can wake up and understand, smell the roses, that this is the movement that African Americans, Hispanics, Caucasians, to various degrees, wanted to move in this direction, okay? It's something, and that allows you to swallow defeat much better than what it was in years past. Now, the third thing shifting is to what I call the Trump normification. Okay, so Donald Trump in 2016 was a shocker to the political world. This was a man whose claim to fame was these bigot, racist remarks in reference to Barack Obama's citizenship. He was a conspiracy theorist. The first time I ever heard of Donald Trump was 2012. I was a young buck, 13 years old, watching the post-election, and I can remember people laughing at this weird call Donald Trump made. His remarks after the 2012 election were strange, and that's where he was. But now here he was coming down the escalator. His debate performances were odd. They were filled with strong-arming other Republican candidates. He literally starts his first ever debate by calling Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, ugly. He comments people ugly, he insults them, he attacks their intelligence. He doesn't really address, and at no point in the 2016 election debates, Republican primary debates, is there any sort of discussion over policy. And ultimately, he wins the White House, but, and some of the reasons he won the White House was Hillary Clinton should have not been the nominee. And I try to look things, and one of the MOs of this channel, as people know, is I try to be on the right side of history. I want these statements I'm making to be true in 10 years, not what's popular today. And truthfully, I think Democrats will, in hindsight, realize in 2016, politically, not morally, not what what progressives wanted, politically, Hillary Clinton was not the smart nomination. Joe Biden absolutely was the smart nomination, and the results showed. 2024 is still out for discussion, and I will update videos as more information comes out, and I think about the implications of whether or not Joe Biden or Kamala Harris being the nominee was the right decision. Keep in mind, just because you lose the election doesn't mean you aren't the right choice for your party. In 2012, Mitt Romney absolutely was the choice for his political party, even though Barack Obama won. He was not a bad nominee. He just simply couldn't beat Barack Obama. John McCain was a good nominee historically, in that even though he was defeated, he bowed out gracefully, recognized the reverence to the election of America's first African American president. He wasn't a bad nominee. It just they were the best that the party could have given the historical context of the conversation, and that's why in 2016 Hillary Clinton was a bad nominee. In 2012 or 2020, Joe Biden was a great nominee choice. And I can back that up with statistics in a different video. But Trump has been normalified. His behavior has become more acceptable and less shocking in the political world. The idea of breaking these norms. And keep in mind, folks, a lot of us political junkies said, this is outrageous, this isn't the norm of politics. Sorry, I didn't mean to bug off my camera there. But they're like, this isn't normal, this is wrong. And there's some degree to that, to those comments of the not being a good choice or setting bad precedent. Primarily the fact that the FBI director is going to get fired again is ridiculous. Like that is not good for democracy. That the president is removing the top law enforcement director every time he gets put in. It's not a good decision. It's not a good precedent. And I hope that even if Republicans win in 2020, that precedent dies with Donald Trump. Because there's a lot that goes on to support the claim that he's removing these FBI directors in order to appoint loyalists into the position. I sincerely hope the United States Senate, the Republican-controlled Senate, will vet his nominees, not with this polarized setting, but asking ourselves, is this a guy who can do? Is this a guy or gal? I know that's a male that's been picked for the position, but even if he goes with a female, I hope they're nominating people based upon their qualifications and not because of their loyalty to Trump. But yes, I'm sorry I get put off by this, but so much of Donald Trump's behavior has been normalified. The idea that he had 32 felonies, the idea that he was found liable for sexual assault, they didn't shock Republican voters. They didn't shock independent voters. Even though independents and moderates ultimately broke more in favor of Kamala Harris, and will continue to break as long as there's Trump candidates on the board. They will always probably break for more moderate Democrats. And honestly, I would argue probably even if you put two extremes, moderates will break for left-leaning candidates. But anyways, people we've just grown accustomed to his behavior. The idea that his sitting cabinet from 2017 to 2021, many of them didn't endorse his reelection. Whatever. This is Donald Trump. Everyone hates Donald Trump. He's bashed by the liberal media. This is all big. These are rhinos, and it's a constant adjustment of the line of normalcy to fit wherever Donald Trump is. And it's not healthy for democracy. I will say that openly. And I'm not trying to be biased, folks. I'm not trying to give a political statement. There's a lot of things Donald Trump gets right, and I respect the results of the election, and I think there was a lot of good things that no president does the job for 365 days a year for 4 years and gets every issue wrong or gets every issue right. I'm just saying that Donald Trump, there are some things, these are the blatant things that any political scientist, public policy expert, historian, high school history teacher has to acknowledge was wrong about Donald Trump. These certain precedents that he has set or removed. But there's still things that he did that was good. I'm not trying to be biased. I'm not trying to attack Donald Trump. I'm just pointing out that some of this behavior that's been normal should not be normal because it's a huge stressor on democracy and does pave way to a government change. One of the big things that I am a huge political believer in, it's one of my own personal philosophies, is that power always comes from the people. Not always, it doesn't have to be a democracy, it doesn't have to be a republic. The power of what government is in charge will always derive from the people's belief. If people want a fascist government, folks, then they will implement a fascist government. It's not that the power belongs to now a select few of people. It is that the people have abdicated their authority and have instead vested it in a select group of people. That's what fascism looks like. But the people can easily take that power back and spread it amongst themselves in a direct democracy. They can do a republic. My point is no matter the definition, power of government will always derive from the people. And the reason I make this passionate plea is certain behaviors like this. I don't think Trump's a fascist. I don't think Trump needs to be impeached. God knows he is not. He should not suffer any sort of political violence. Let your vote speak loud. It's what John Adams would have wanted. and other founding fathers. John Adams was a big proponent of it, though. But folks, he is opening the door for a government change, a system of government change. I don't think Donald Trump has any interest in doing that. I don't think he's interested in being a dictator. I think he just is like any president, that he's trying to stay in power or gain power, depending on where he was in his political career. And he was willing to take those risks. But certain things like upheaving the Justice Department is not good. It opens the door for fascist style governments or banana republics in name only. Now, I suspect, I see the other Republicans within the party, and I think even people like J.D. Vance that are huge Trump supporters will close those doors shut after Donald Trump exits the White House and control that floodgate a little bit. Say all that to say the third part of why Donald Trump is doing so successfully is due to the fact that his behavior has been normalified. It's not as shocking to people anymore. The fourth thing is leadership, folks. The Democratic Party has not incited, they have not gone on the attack against Donald Trump. They have not made these huge claims. Like, it wasn't like 2016. They are welcoming his leadership as was used to be standard. And a lot of that is coming from Joe Biden. I am sure of it. Joe Biden is a man of precedent, and he is exactly the return to traditional politics that Americans craved in 2020. And he is signing that he is signaling to his fellow Democrats, allow Donald Trump to come in, allow him to lead, give him the opportunity to lead something that they didn't afford to me. I'm going to extend to them, and we want Donald Trump to succeed, because if he succeeds, if the Republicans in Congress succeed, if they break the norm and they actually make trickle-down economics work for once in history, great. We all get wealthier off of it. But he's affording that opportunity. Now, I say these 4 points, and I'm going to do a mini conclusion here, because the next thing I want to do is talk about what is next. What can we learn from this video that I'm making here? But what the point of these things is to say that liberals aren't freaking out, because mostly they are witnessing their leadership give a calm, steady hand. They're preparing to move into the party of minority, and they're getting ready for that defense. And they're gonna, and truthfully, truth be told, if you watch the campaigns of Kamala Harris in 2024 and Joe Biden in 2020, they're trying to walk the talk the walk, and they're gonna be the party minority, and they're gonna give Donald Trump the wins if it ultimately benefits America, and they're gonna fight against it if they feel like that his policies aren't working for Americans. I don't know how Republicans would have ultimately done this. I suspect that if Kamala Harris would have won, and there would have been enough vote shift, let's say there's 100,000 vote shift, and Kamala Harris would have won the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and won the White House. I don't know how Republicans would have reacted, but I suspect that they probably would have allowed Kamala Harris to come in and lead. But at least we know for sure, because we live in the real world, the Democrats have afforded that. And so just because of the universal shift, the unified voting referendum, and it sent Democrats into the part of soul searching. And that's where we're going to move into next, which is the what is next portion of this discussion. And the first thing is folks, the rise of populism is here. Okay? It is here, and it is here to stay. Joe Biden and this third wave Democrats, that in middle part Democrats like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, their days are done, not because they were ineffective, but because the American people have moved beyond it. Populism is now here. And the rallying cries of Bernie Sanders, which was once an obscure Democrat thought process in the fringes of the party, will now become the mainstream. Folks, I've said that for a long time, that Joe Biden was the floodgate control. He was the floodgate that was preventing the far left from taking over, or populist Democrats or socialist Democrats from taking it out. Now that Kamala Harris has been defeated, Democrats are accepting the referendum on this. Democrats are going to bring more of a class warfare style argument than Republicans. If you had to, and this is going to sound super negative, folks, but we have to be realistic. Democrats are more hyper focused on class warfare, while Republicans have a lot of more tilt towards racial class warfare. So is the classes divided between race or income? Democrats are about eat the rich. They're tired of this. They believe big businesses, billionaires, millionaires are controlling America. Republicans, on the other hand, are trying to. Conservatism is much different than it was 12 years ago. I'm not saying Republicans are racist, folks. All I'm saying is that Republicans are focused in on. There's some racial. I should say. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and say it's not about racial conflict as much as it is. I'm not trying to say, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. I'm not trying to make the argument that Republicans are racist. What I'm trying to say is that Republicans are hypersensitive to the issues that races are suffering. So I'm not saying that Republican movements are based upon white people trying to establish dominance and superiority over other racial categories. I'm just saying that they're looking at it because, believe me, folks, people like Tim Scott are like fighting for African Americans, and they're not seeing African Americans as being held down by wealthy white people like Democrats are. They're seeing African Americans that need to advocate for themselves. They need to have the free market come in and invest for them, and we have the policies that are going to do that. I hope that clears that up. I realize that first part wasn't worded too well, but that's what I'm trying to say is that it's about who they're advocating for and the temperament and the worldview that they're taking. What Democrats are going to start seeing, you're going to see is like, listen, I don't see a black man, a Hispanic man, a woman, a white woman, black woman. All I see is income people, poor people that are under the thumb of a system that is rigged against us, while Republicans look at it as just like, we have to protect the values and cultures of the communities around us and advocate for them so that they can succeed and achieve the American dream. But it's up to them. It's up to them ultimately as individuals to succeed. It's our job to just enable them the opportunity. The next point is what is the center? What is the political center going to be? We don't know what a moderate looks like anymore. It is shifting. What used to be the moderate, just because policy is shifting, moderates are going to get more and more split. And folks, the big thing, and I'm going to make a bigger video on this, but Trump has given huge amounts of promises, Barack Obama-style promises. So, folks, whoever wins this election, and this is going to be a headline for a video I'm going to make, but I am a huge believer however Donald Trump performs will open the door for a two-term president. If Trump does well and an economic boom happens and he delivers these populist results, whoever wins the Republican nomination should expect to serve from 2029 to 2037 because he's delivered on these things. And he'll achieve a level of popularity. If the economy kicks into recession, which is a huge thing, I guarantee it, folks, Republicans are going to hit the White House because they know the natural market of the economy is showing recession, and they're preparing for it. And they're going to have to, they're going to prepare for it. And if a recession kicks off, no matter, you're not going to be able to, just like Joe Biden tried to sell that, and Kamala Harris tried to sell that the economy was improving, Republicans aren't going to be able to sell that the free market or the cycle of the economy. Republicans are going to blame them for economic downturn, and they're going to send a 2039 to 2037 Democrat to the White House. So he has to deliver big on these things. You can tell that's why he's appointing a lot of people that view his positions very similar. He's not planning on dealing with any sort of... I don't think he wants that infighting that he had for the first term. But, we'll see, But in ultimately conclusion, I wanted to thank everyone for watching these videos. You guys are a great viewer. I want to hear your comments. Again, if any of you guys have any sort of comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. In the next video, I will address them. Thank you all so much again for watching. Again, these are just my own opinions developed by my own research. So thank you so much. If you don't see me before Christmas, I hope you're all having a great Christmas. I'm hoping to get a video up before Christmas. Thank you all again, and have a great rest of your week.